Hi all, I'm Libby, proud captain of Millwall Lionesses. Thank you to our Millwall fan show from the No One Likes Us Talking team for sponsoring me this year. Make sure you give them a listen like I do. Or even better, why not sponsor a Lioness while you're at it like they do? Thank you always for your continued support.
This podcast is a proud member of the Fan Hub 100. Football without fans is nothing, so we've partnered with Fan Hub to put fans first. Search Fan Hub app to play your part in the journey.
Hi, I'm Bethany Warren, and you are joining me to listen to the podcast of our Millwall fan show with the No One Likes Us Talking team, which is available every Friday at 8 p.m.
It's the second Friday of COVID 2.0. I'm your host, James Kelly, and I have the No One Likes Us Talking team of Patricia Maslin, Henry Morgan, and Stan Godwin.
Not everybody likes them, but they don't care.
So Millwall gained a valuable point against Sheffield Wednesday this weekend in a pulsating 0-0 draw at Hillsborough. It also proved to be Gary Monk's last game in charge, and he became the latest manager to get the chop after a result against the mighty Lions. Patricia, what did you think of the game on Saturday?
Well, I thought it was a boring draw, really. Everyone keeps saying good away point, which perhaps it was, but the game was really terrible. Even Rowett said it was very poor with his after-match comments. It's a shame. The last three games have been quite bad. After a good start to the season, let's hope we can get a forward in. Perhaps Parrott coming back, but it's a lot to put on an 18-year-old shoulders. Our season, but that's all I've got to say on that.
Mm. Yeah, I suppose a point away from home is always a good point. They all count at some point, and I don't think it's as doom and gloom as people are making it out to be honest with you. But hey ho. Emery, good evening. What did you think of the game?
Evening. Yeah, I thought it was fairly pedestrian, if I'm being honest. But I think again, I just keep coming back to the fact, like, I know I was going about squad size and stuff and how many matches we have in such a short space of time, but I think that you're going to have to rotate the squad slightly. It wasn't the same team that we saw playing up at Preston. Obviously, we've got a lack of strikers up front, so we can only do what we can do at the moment, really. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it's putting it into perspective. I think 9th in the league, 2 points off the playoffs. We're no different really to how we were as we went into the first lockdown, and so I think that sort of puts it into perspective, really. Like if I'm being honest, Stan, what do you think?
I might have got an advantage or a disadvantage, depending on your point of view. I mean, I never saw the game on Saturday against Sheffield Wednesday, and from the sounds of things, it was probably just as well I didn't. But but I don't know. I mean, I was reading some of the comments afterwards, and I honestly believe some people are losing the plot here, because at the end of the day, right, our problems have started to arise since we've had the two strikers that were brought in. They've now got, they've now injured, and that has caused us a problem. I say, caused us a problem. I mean, Troy Parrott, I don't know because I've not seen him play yet. I mean, I've heard all about him, and I'm not doubting he's as good as people say he is, but he's not done that yet through no fault of his own. But the other guy that came in, he looked like he was doing okay, and that the wheels have come off a bit. Well, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
As Jimmy Greaves once said, it's a funny old game, and then we played Norwich, and people were getting themselves excited about that. And then I think it was Dave Hart put up, and I think he showed our figures against Norwich away, and I don't think we've won there in about 30 visits there, or some bizarre figure like that. Now Norwich, in my opinion, are going to be up and around at the end of the season, and we went there and we got a point. Okay, that's fine by me. I'd rather have a point and then get beat. Yeah. I mean, ideally you'd want 3, but you don't always get what you want.
Yeah, but we haven't scored in 4 hours, have we? I mean, you've got to start to worry. We didn't have a shot on target Saturday. You can't keep saying.
Yeah, I mean, okay, but I didn't see the game. So if you're telling me we didn't have a shot, and I'm not going to dispute that with you, mate, because I've not seen the game. I'm just saying that, there's. I mean, Ryan Lennon is normally good for a pop at goal, and so I don't know what happened there, but at the moment we've got this problem, haven't we? Because we've got two strikers that are out and have got supposedly, or certainly one of them, has got a bit of pace about him. And I feel sorry for Bradshaw because I still don't think he gets the service, and I think that's part. He does a lot of running around, not for his own, because he's not getting any decent service, in my opinion. Somebody might have a different view, but and I think if you play Matt Smith, and I don't dislike Matt, but I think you're limited because of his lack of pace.
Yeah, I mean, I think any other day Matt Smith would have buried the chance he had, and I think he's probably kicking himself that he didn't. But I suppose it was just a bit of an off day, really. I mean, I still maintain that a point away from home is always good. And as I said, you put it into perspective. I mean, we only spent £500,000 in the summer, and we're ninth in the league, 2 points off the playoffs. And you've got a team like, for example, Derby, who are currently bottom, having spent so much more than what we have. And obviously and they've also got the likes of Wayne Rooney at their club, and so I think we're doing all right. And I think, given the international break, now this weekend, it gives us a chance to sort of recharge a bit, and then we hope to give Neil Harris a nice warm welcome back after the break. Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I would say, picking up on James there, is the fact that sometimes we get, not just us, but a lot of people, we get hung up too much on all this budget stuff, right? And, so if somebody, there seems to be this point of view, don't there, that if you go and spend £3 million, for example, or whatever, that somehow that's going to produce things. Well, you only have to look at Fulham last season. They got promoted, spent, 100 million and got relegated.
Tonight we welcome a former Lion who lived round the corner from the old den, or so they say. Started his playing career as a youth player with Millwall in 1986. He played for our first team from 1992 to 93, through to the 1996-97 season, making 77 appearances as a player and playing sub. He was released on a free transfer and then enjoyed spells with Barnet, Northampton Town and Notts County. Non-league football followed with Gravesend and Northfleet and Welling United. He also played for Chesham United and Fisher Athletic and signed for Tonbridge at the start of the 2003-04 season. Initially only as a player, before taking over at the helm within a matter of months. He led the Angels to promotion and winners of the Ryman League Division 1 South Playoff Final at the end of the 2005-2006 campaign. He returned to the Hastings United hot seat in February 2009, having previously managed the club between January and May 2008, during which time he led a successful battle against relegation, only to step down a few days after the end of the season. He hung up his playing boots and management aspirations after being with Cray Wanderers. Last week, Malcolm Allen spoke well of him, and he's remembered by many Millwall fans to this day. He's one of our own who join us in the virtual studio tonight. Good evening, Tony Dolby.
How you doing?
Evening, Tony.
Very well, thank you.
Tony.
Evening, Tony.
Tony, before I hand you over to the panel, you must have visited the den as a boy. Do you have any Millwall heroes growing up?
Yeah, I went to Millwall all the time. I only lived a stone's throw away. And I remember my first game, my next door neighbour was an avid Millwall fan, and he took me when I could barely remember anything back then. But it was a Crystal Palace game, and I think we drew 1-1, but I'm going back many moons ago. And then it's kind of hooked from there, really. But as I was a late teenager, before I came to Millwall as an apprentice, I was a youth team, like a schoolboy there anyway, and that was when we had a successful time in the old First Division. So obviously Teddy and Cascarino up front and Jimmy Carter wide. I cleaned Jimmy's boots as an apprentice, and Kevin O'Callaghan as well. And they were the wide men, and I played a little bit wide at the time. So those four up front were quite strong. But yeah, there was a lot of heroes back then because we were a quite successful team then.
Yeah, Tony, Henry here. Lovely to speak to you. I've got it's an interesting story for me. You probably won't remember this, but in about 1996, played for Blackheath Wanderers, and you came to our prize giving evening, and you gave away all of the first team player of the season. But you probably don't remember, but I met you on that night. You signed the green and white Captain Morgan half and half shirt. And I actually found it earlier today, so Eamon was like, "Can you see if you could find it?" So that was just an interesting. I
remember actually going and handing things out. I was really young though, weren't I? It was it's a bit different. It's quite surreal when you're a young pro and you get asked to do things like that.
Yeah, no, but I remember.
I do remember doing that.
Yeah, that was. I think you were in a Ben Sherman shirt. I don't know, but you were just little things that you remember at the time. But yeah, fantastic.
They used to be fashionable, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. I think I was probably wearing one as well, actually, to be fair. So my question is, how did you come to join Millwall as a 12-year-old?
It was actually, I was playing for South London against West London at the Old Den, actually, in a cup final. We won 3-0, played really well, scored a couple of goals and stuff. And it was Joe Davis, who was a Millwall scout. And he came up to me after the game and just said, "Would you like to come down? We train at Southwark Park at the time." They did like a school of excellence at Southwark Park. And obviously, I didn't live very far at all. So I obviously jumped at the chance being a Millwall fan as well. And literally it went from there. I used to run to Southwark Park, train on a Tuesday and a Thursday, I think it was, and then run home after training, and that's how it started. And then it was kind of like just escalated from there. It was just like a permanent fixture then for many years.
Hello, Tony. It's Pat here. Did you actually hear what Malcolm Allen said about you?
I did actually. Do you know what? My phone was red hot afterwards, sending me links. And I was with Andy Roberts a few days after, and we were speaking about it. And Malcolm had spoken to Andy and passed on his best wishes, and I said likewise backwards. I remember Malcolm really well. We played in that same first team together, and that. I mean,
that was
it was massive. To hear. It's always nice.
It was a massive compliment to you. That was his best Millwall moment, actually, of his time there. So, what was yours?
Well, that was probably likewise. I mean, to score on your full debut is sort of like stuff of dreams, especially when you're a Millwall fan, grew up around the corner and stuff. I mean, prior to that, we did win the FA Youth Cup, which was a fantastic memory in itself, because not many can say that they've won the FA Youth Cup, and I don't know that Millwall will do that ever again with the way that the youth teams are run now in the Premier League. But we won the FA Youth Cup and had a really good team back then as the under-18s. And then, so that alongside scoring on my debut was probably the two highlights for me.
Yeah, Tony, stand here. You must be a bit unique because, as I understand it, you're in your first full season. You must be one of the few players who've actually played against Charlton and been on the losing side. And we lost, according to this, what I've got in front of me, we lost 2-1. So I suspect that we was at home. I mean, that is very, very rare indeed, I must admit. But they
were quite good back then, Charlton as well. They had Lee Bowyer and Cole Leeburn and players like that. And we played live on TV at the Valley and lost as well, actually. But yeah, we had a few battles with them. And when I was a youth team player, the Charlton lads and us, we shared colleges, so we got to know them quite well. As you know, our training grounds backed off onto each other, Bard Hill and Sparrows Den. And we used to play training games each Wednesday against them. So we'd go over to each other's training pitch and just play like a friendly game, like a practice match, if you will. And so we had lots of good run-ins with Charlton. But yeah, you never wanted to lose against them, and we don't seem to lose too many against them over the years, which is a good thing.
Well, it's interesting because you mentioned Lee Bowyer, so that would mean then that was in actual fact, that would have been the last season, would have been about 1996 time, I think, or 5-6, where that was the last time they actually beat us. They beat us twice that season, didn't they? And And I know Bowyer, I don't know whether he scored in both, but I know he scored in one of the games, and I think that was on the television as well. So that's a bit of unique history there, mate. I reckon.
Yeah, no, I remember he scored, and I was a little bit wild back then. So I was only young, but as he scored, and they were running back to the centre circle celebrating, I tripped him up on purpose because I was upset at conceding a goal, and I don't think the cameras caught it, to be fair, but I remember it well.
Okay. Tony, who was your greatest influence at the Den?
Tom Wally was the youth team coach when I signed as an apprentice from schoolboys, and he had a huge influence. I mean, when he came with quite a bit of pedigree with youngsters under 18s, and he had been really successful at Watford, and he went on to coach at Arsenal and Wales actually, and he was a huge influence because when we first come, we were a bit hit and miss, and we lost the first two youth team games. 5-2 to Charlton and 5-1 to Tottenham. And he said, like, literally, none of you are going to make it. He was a really hard taskmaster. And, he said, none of you boys are going to make it. You're all useless and all of this. And lo and behold, he kind of got us together. And that was the actual year that we won the FA Youth Cup after having that start and being told that none of us will make it. But he was a huge influence, Tom, and he was really good at his job, like getting the best out of the young lads with lots of discipline, but also real good shape and knowledge of the game and how to win football matches, which is what we did from there on. Professional terms, I mean, Bruce Rioch gave me my first professional contract, and Steve Harrison and Ian Evans were coaches there. And Ian McDonald was coaching the reserves, and they were all sort of like had a big influence. I used to practice with Teddy Sheringham. I used to take the free kicks and penalties for the youth team, and he was the first team dead ball specialist as well. And we used to train after, so that was a big influence. And then Mick McCarthy gave me a fairly large contract at Millwall. So yeah, I mean there was plenty of coaches and managerial influences, and yeah, the lads all around us. Andy Roberts was a real close friend of mine, and he still is. And yeah, we had a good bond. But as far as influences, yeah, Tom Wally was probably the main one who set me on my way.
Tony played with Etienne Verveer. When I see him play, he always looked a bit of a special player. What was he like when you was training and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, ET as we called him was. It was quite different because obviously there wasn't a massive influx of foreign players back then, and ET came over, and what he brought was like you've never seen a man so supple. He was like all he did, like literally, you turned around and he was stretching. He was the most flexible person in the world, but it was just through stretching and preparing and stuff like that. He was quite mild mannered, but yeah, he's technically very good, and that foreign influence of sort of like preparing your body, it weren't so much with the English players back then. It was down the pub after training, and there weren't much in by way of warming down and warming up and stuff like that. But he brought sort of like that along, and it was just that transitional period. But he was a very good player, but it was a little bit hit and miss with him. But yeah, he spoke okay English, and yeah, the stretching was the thing I remember about him most. Just sort of like forever stretching. I couldn't get my head around it.
Tony, today's game, do you still look out for our results at the Den still?
Oh, of course, yeah. I'm still a big Millwall fan.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to get down as much as I'd like. I've done a couple of guest commentaries over the years with the Lions World TV thing. I've done that a couple of times, and I'll take my boy down and my daughter down, and we've gone to a few games, probably sort of like one or two a season. But where they're like the family, there's always things to do. Like the kids have got football themselves and work, and you got other commitments. It's hard to get down to the games as much as I'd like. But yeah, of course, I always have a look out and follow the team.
Good stuff.
One of the players, Tony, that you play with, and to me, he was one of the finest defenders that Millwall have ever had, was Ian Dawes. I mean, what I liked about him is when you watched him play, he just did everything simple. It was never complicated, and as a consequence, he never really got into too much aggravation. But how did you find playing with him?
Ian Dodds was fantastic. He was the epitome of sort of like steady, never gave the ball away, very hard to take on if you're a winger. His passing was accurate, and he crossed a lovely ball. I think I saw his thing actually that Millwall did. I saw his interview on there, and it brought back a few memories. But he was brilliant to play with as well because his communication was good. His overlapping runs were really good, and really, really clever player. Really good fullback at that time. The way that fullbacks played back then, he was fantastic at that role, and he must have been one of the best fullbacks in the country as far as I was concerned through what I played against and what I saw.
Tony, Henry here. I had another question. Other than the first goal that you scored for Millwall, are there any other goals that really stand out? I mean, I've got one in mind, just if you haven't.
Well, I didn't score many. That was the thing. I played a lot of my games at left back for Millwall.
I was going to
say
games.
The Wickham goal that was the winner that I scored from a header at the New Den, because I actually played in the last game at the Old Den and the first game at the New Den, and that season we had a couple of good results. We had a really good strong home form, and the goal I scored against Wickham, I really enjoyed that goal. But the one I scored, I think it was either the game before or the game after against Luton. Free kick,
that's the one I was.
Probably the one, probably my best goal, if you like, that rattled in the stanchion, that free kick. That was brilliant away win.
I mean, I was, I don't know if you know, but the away fans are almost below the pitch. I was right down the front, and I can still see that ball going into the stanchion to this day. That's never left me. It's like everyone froze for a second, and then it went in, and everyone just went into bedlam. Yeah.
Funny story about that. The Luton goalkeeper was a massive fella. His name was Ian Fuhr, I think it was. And quite a funny story. After the game, he was speaking to Tim Carter, who was one of the Millwall goalkeepers, and he said, I got nowhere near that Russian's free kick. He thought I was Sergei Uran. That was funny. I said, I wasn't that big. There was nothing of me back then. I certainly didn't look like one of the Russians.
In today's football, with the fans not being allowed there, Tony, what's your take on it that the Albert Hall can fill up come Christmas, yet we still can't go and watch Millwall? It's a tricky one. Doesn't seem fair, really, does it?
No, I mean, there's sporadic involvement in sports at the moment with spectators, but I mean, the things in place, you could do it. I mean, even if it was sort of like on a rotation basis, we should be able to get some fans in. I mean, the fact that it's outdoors predominantly as well it mystifies me why we can't. I can only assume that it's things like the transportation to and from the ground, as well as just being in the ground. It could be a multitude of things, but I understand. Obviously, it's a dangerous, difficult time that we live in. But when you hear about other things being done and other things not, it kind of makes you wonder where those decisions come from.
But having such a big involvement with lower league clubs, I mean, it must be terrible on their expenses, their finances and that, to see any clubs going out of business.
I'm surprised that we haven't heard of more clubs in trouble. I think I saw the other day that a few EFL clubs are going to struggle to meet their wages, make their wage payments this month. And as far as the lower level is concerned, there's not too many that have got like sugar daddies that just pump money in. It is literally based on how many people you can get through the door and how many pies and programs you can sell, and that's your budget. And if that's not happening, I'm pretty sure that a lot of these players now are not getting paid what they were getting paid, and I don't really know how they're doing it, to be honest. But it will differ from club to club. Others are stronger financially than some, and I'm sure we're going to lose a few clubs because of it if it doesn't change quickly.
I mean, it's interesting you say that, Tony, about the non-league, because I read the the other week that because the government had come along, hadn't they, and they'd set aside X amount of money for the conference or the National League, whatever you want to call it, and that's would sort of see him through for the time being. But apparently there's been a bit of an argument broken out, because the way that whoever it is that the powers that be, the way they're divvying up the money, some clubs are not too happy with all that. Whether it's the old argument they think they should get more, I mean, I don't know, but it's an interesting one. But I did read the other day there's some club in, I think it's Woking or that way, not in the free leagues, but there's some American guy coming and he's talking about taking over and then talking about from next season them going full time.
Is that Wrexham?
No, it's not them. It's an English club, Pat.
Okay.
And apparently,
the
this particular
actor, isn't it, who's
individual.
taken over Wrexham? Who was it?
That's
Ryan
correct,
Reynolds.
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds, yeah.
I was going to say that this guy who's supposedly this Yank who's taken them over, apparently he's got a record with doing that even in the States with sort of lower league sort of equivalent baseball clubs and turning them full time or something. Yeah, apparently. So
there's lots of stories over the years of people coming in and making investments, and it's just the longevity is not always there, is it? With it,
no, that's
see,
right.
a lot of these non-league clubs, what they do is I don't know how they're going to get any government help, because I'm pretty sure that they don't pay a massive amount of tax on the money that they pay their guys. So I mean, I don't know how much is through the books on a lot of them that allows them to sort of like say, well, we pay this much out, therefore we need this much help. But yeah, if somebody can subsidise it for a period of time, that's all well and good. But now with the second lockdown and the fact that it could go on again, and it's highly unlikely that we're going to see fans back at the non-league level, I wouldn't have thought, this season. But I mean, I don't know how they're going to do it. But yeah, there's obviously a lot of money at the top end of football. And with that in mind, it's probably not a massive figure that is needed, but there are an awful lot of clubs from sort of like step 5 down that we're talking about. And that, like you say, they'll all want a little piece to keep going. But how it's going to pan out is anybody's guess at the moment.
Mm. Well, Tony, it's been great to talk to you. Some great stories that we've heard this evening. And before you go, can we have a prediction for the Millwall-Cardiff game on Saturday week?
It'd be nice to get one over Neil Harris.
Oh.
Well, it would be, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah, for sure, yeah.
yeah, cool.
But yeah, actually, Neil Harris was... his daughter played for the Mill Lionesses, actually, younger, and my daughter played at the same time. So while he was manager at Mill, I used to see him down at the girls' training and that. But they didn't play in the same team, so my daughter was slightly older. But we used to see him, and he knew a couple of my mates as well. But yeah, I think Cardiff are a funny team. They've done all right, and then they haven't. And it's as far as Millwall's concerned, like, all we need to do is just pick up as many results as we possibly can. I mean, we're doing better than I anticipated this season, and long may that continue. So I'm going to go for a 1-0 Millwall win.
Lovely stuff.
Good man.
Love that.
Well, thanks, Tony. I'm sure we'll talk again. So until next time, all the best.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Tony. Take care.
Cheers, Tony.
Okay.
Thanks, Tony. Take care.
So we're going to take a break there and listen to Bethany Warren talking about Love Sport Radio.
Bethany Warren here again. Thanks for listening to our show. Don't forget, Love Sport Radio is now mothballed pending change in current conditions. You can still listen though to music both online and on DAB. Hopefully we'll be back on the air with them when normality returns to the marketplace.
I'm James Kelly, and I'm back with the No One Likes Us Talking team of Patricia Maslin, Henry Morgan and Stan Godwin. Don't forget, you won't find us at the Love Sport Radio studios currently, as we know many of you have tried. No matches due to the international break this weekend, and obviously no matches for Millwall Romans or Lionesses due to lockdown restrictions. Tonight we turn to the inequalities that are evident between the men and women's games in this time of COVID-19 restrictions. But first up, we're going to have a listen to our very own Henry Morgan and Libby Stubbs, captains of the Millwall Lionesses, discussing quite a compelling issue.
This evening we're talking to Millwall Lionesses captain Libby Stubbs about equality in the game of football. Libby, good evening.
Hiya.
Can you tell our listeners the circumstances surrounding this tweet that you sent out late last week? But why are we having to fight so hard as women just to play football in the 21st century?
Yeah, of course. So basically I saw a couple of articles go out last week sometime about the FA's decision to stop girls' academies from playing during this lockdown, whereas the boys' academies were still being allowed to play. I just thought it was quite strange in the fact that the boys' academies are linked to the Premiership teams, as are the girls' academies linked to the WSL and Championship, who are still playing. I just couldn't really understand the reasonings for them stopping the girls' academies from playing, even though they are at the same standard as the men's in playing for the teams that are classed as elite.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking to us this evening.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
And I look forward to coming down and watching the Lionesses play and when we get back after lockdown.
Look forward to seeing you down there.
So a somewhat unreasonable position being taken there. Dan, what are your thoughts?
Well, I listened very carefully to what Libby had to say, and to be perfectly honest with you, I can't find anything that she said that I could disagree with. But most women's football teams now are associated with, football clubs, i.e. the Millwall Lionesses or whoever it might be, and I've listened to these things over the years, and I've just always got the impression that somehow they're sort of like the poor relation. When it comes to funding, well, they're sort of at the end of the queue and one thing and another. Now, as I say, that's the impression I get. And over the last few years, the women's game has taken off, well, leaps and bounds. That is certainly on the increase. Okay, they're unfortunate, like we all are because of this pandemic. But, to me, I don't understand why they seem to have to struggle for everything, and why they're sort of, that's the impression I get, that they're sort of, at the back of the queue when they should be up the front of the queue, everybody else. That's my view. So, I think what Libby's saying is spot on, absolutely spot on.
Yeah, Pat.
Girls' football academies are not classed as elite sport because they're not required to do COVID testing. That's the big difference. The men's teams do strong COVID testing, therefore their academies are allowed to continue playing, and that's the only difference I can see, and I think that's the reason they've been stopped playing. Going back to the FA, they will deny it, but I think they've been resistant to the women's game since forever. They banned women from their pitches for 50 years and only started allowing them playing in 71. 3 years ago, they introduced a game plan for growth. This was supposed to improve football for women and girls by this year. And I know we've had trouble this year with COVID and such, but I can't see any improvement in the last 3 years. And also, now they say that all schoolgirls will have access to football by 2024. Now, why do they have to wait that long? Why do they have to wait another 3 or 4 years just to get football at schoolgirl level? Yeah, I feel for the girls. They're desperate to play and train together. It's like being back in 1973 when I had bigoted issues to contend with starting the Lionesses. So, yeah, totally sorry for them.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And obviously how COVID, the lockdown, is actually affecting mental health. And I think given that, it's imperative actually that women's football can continue and should continue throughout lockdown, even as well as men's football. However, you can hear an extended version of that interview on Sunday, available from our usual podcast providers, Spreaker, Apple, Spotify and Amazon, and on our social media sites of Facebook, Twitter and Tumblr. We're going to take a break there and listen to what Kai Bennett gets up to on Millwall Fan TV.
Hey, I'm Kai from Millwall Fan TV. On Millwall Fan TV, I cover pre-match predictions, post-match analysis, and a bit of full-time reaction when we can go to the games. Also, quite a few X-Lines chats on my YouTube, actually, as we speak right now. I've got some Martin Wolford, Scott Barron, that just a couple to name a few. So do it for the love of Millwall. Absolutely love Millwall, and let's hope we can push on next year and make the playoffs. And if you could subscribe to Millwall Fan TV, that'd be absolutely amazing, and hopefully we can follow the journey together. Comedy lines.
I'm James Kelly, and I'm back with the No One Likes Us Talking team of Patricia Maslin, Henry Morgan and Stan Godwin. Our final guest this evening arrives as a fan in the dugout, although he's much more widely recognised for being the founder of the Proper Blokes Club, who are partnered with our post-match reviews with Henry Morgan on Sundays. The main aim of the club is to break the stigma of men's mental health and start talking openly about it. I'm delighted to have the man here. We have been hearing from him on our show ads. Please say hello to Scott Johnson.
Hello, Scott.
How you doing, guys?
Scott.
Thanks for having me.
No worries, Scott, anytime. Before you talk with the team, Scott, what would you say drove you to create the Proper Blokes Club?
It was more than likely just to do with my own sort of mental health issues I was suffering with pre-lockdown one. It was just a lot of stuff that was coming on board with me in terms of my mentality, my mindset and things that was going on in my life. Started off with access to my little ones and going in and out of court and stuff. It affected me quite a bit, and then it became other issues on top of that, financial work and so on. And it got to a point where I wasn't functioning great, to be honest with you, and I needed to try and find some help. So eventually I reached out, which is the main thing and definitely the right thing to do. And I needed something to do on a daily basis that was keeping me active and keeping me focused. And walking was the one for me, really. So I started doing that, started posting up daily videos, and we got to lockdown one, so I couldn't meet up with anyone at the time. So I had to just do videos online, really, and that's and it's led me on to doing small local groups, which has been really well received.
Hello, Scott. It's Pat here. Lockdown has obviously changed how you operate. Are you doing the videos now? What are you doing different since 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, so what's happening now is because once we came out of lockdown one, then we started the groups pretty much straight away because we had a bit of a following beforehand. So we started off with the groups. We got up to like this, the maximum of 6 that we could at the time. And then obviously we got into this second lockdown. And what's happening now is we're just operating sort of one-to-one groups now. So everyone's sort of that was on the groups before are meeting each other up during a week where we can meet up with one person outside a household at a time. So it was really important that we all kept together and kept walking. But then also I'm doing sort of like FaceTimes and phone calls and things like that as well, reaching out to people that are not so local. We're continuing to reach people.
Hi, Scott. It's Stan here, mate.
Hello,
there seems to be many fans that are down about not being able to watch their team live from the terraces. Me included, I miss it. Do you think a push to allow fans to return to a COVID-secure environment is a priority? Or do we need to consider other factors that the government point out as well, including the whole fan journey from home to venue, how fans travel to and from stadiums, the risk of gathering outside such venues and the high number of contact points that have risks along the way, e.g. mainline stations, as part of making it happen?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, to be fair, because like compared to lockdown one and the one we're in at the moment, like everyone's been out and about, and it doesn't really seem like there's a lockdown going on, especially this second part where people can be out and about, and public transport seems as busy as it was before, even pre-lockdown one, to be fair. During the break in between both of them, I did manage to go to a few non-league games, which you was allowed to go in. I think it's step 3 and below, I think it was, and that you could go to, and I think they had capacity of like, I don't know, maybe about 400 or 500 people that could go. So I think there probably is a way of maybe doing it, and considering like a club like Millwall, a lot of the fan base are quite local to the stadium, so it wouldn't be a case where there'd be many travelling on the main lines maybe. And then also we've obviously got the 4 stands we could potentially use where there won't be no away fans anyway, so if they can sort of distance them out in the dugouts, I don't see there being a massive issue in saying maybe, I don't know, 2,000 can go and you spread them out throughout. Obviously, we've got a 20,000 seat stadium, I think, haven't we? So maybe there could be something we could do that way. I don't know. It'd be nice to see them go back, but obviously, I guess we just have to go along with the government guidelines at the moment.
Yeah, no, I agree, mate.
Hi Scott, Henry here, mate.
Hi, mate.
When did you first go and watch Millwall play, and can you remember much about it?
Well, that's a tough one. Remembering the first one, all I remember it was the Captain Morgan days on the top. That was probably that one there. But there is one game that sort of really sticks out in my mind and sort of sums up Mill to me in a nutshell. And that was, I think it was back in 2009 when we played Scunthorpe in the playoff final. We went from 1-0 down, and then to the best goal scored at Wembley, 2-1 up. Like all of a sudden we're going to the Championship, and then it just went, and then we ended up losing it, and it seems like we've been like that like every season. It's been a bit of a nightmare, but this is that's sort of biggest memory for me, I guess, in terms of summing up Millwall as a feeling for me in one game. Massive highs and massive lows.
Coming back to this season, we've won 4, we've drawn 4, lost 2 league games. What's your take on this season so far?
This season, I was talking to a friend about this earlier on, and we'd sort of put a prediction out of where we'd finish this league, and I'm really confident this season. It seems like we've got everything we need, minus the 2 lads that are out injured up top. I think the team is coming together really, really well, especially having a real solid back line in terms of Cooper and Hutchison, and obviously Bart's in goal. That's a real solid partnership there, and we seem to have quite a lot going forward as well now. So we've got a real good balanced team, and I don't want to get myself too excited, but maybe maybe playoffs, maybe.
Well, Scott, you've somewhat... I was going to ask you, where in the league do you think that we will finish this season? Well, you just answered that.
I said 5th earlier. That's what I said. But ideally, 2nd or 1st. So avoid the playoff dramas.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I mean, the only thing I would say is that with a playoff game, I mean, if you're going to get promoted, that's the way to do it. Providing you win it, I mean.
Yeah, if you can guarantee me a playoff win, then
the 9 one. Yeah, I know. I get what you mean.
Everyone remembers who won the playoffs, but no one remembers who went up second.
Yeah, true, but I wouldn't mind taking a second, if I'm being honest.
Right.
Have you got a favourite player at the moment?
I'd say probably the one that sticks out the most to me is probably Jed. Just for the reason I feel when he turns up and he does what he does going forward, we tend to win. So when he has a bit of an off day, like I said, we're missing out on that little attacking threat, I think. So I think at the back, I think we're really solid. So I think when Jed turns up and he does a really good game, then we tend to come out with the 3 points, don't we? So far, that seems this season anyway.
I was going to just say, out of all the players you've seen play for Millwall, who would you say is the best ever player you've seen play for Millwall?
Oh, wow, that's a big one. Torn between probably Cahill and Jimmy Adu, maybe. Like I like both of them. They were week in, week out, tireless warriors, weren't they? I don't think they ever had a bad game, either of them. Whenever I saw them play, so they never had an off day. And I think that they didn't have all the flair and skill, but they gave everything on the pitch, and I think that's, especially down at the Bend on a busy night, no one gets away with putting a poor performance in today. So, and I don't think anyone moaned about them. Thanks
for the info on the Proper Blokes Club and your footballing views, Scott. But before you leave us, could you just remind our listeners how they can get in contact with you, please?
So I don't know you guys if you put anything out, but obviously I'm on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, all under the Proper Blokes Club. So if anyone wants to reach out via that, they can. Also got a number as well that you can contact, which is 07397 501110. So they're the ways to get in contact with me if anyone needs any sort of one-to-one walks that are local in the area, or just need a chat on the phone. I'm at the other end.
Excellent. Well, thanks again, Scott. All the best, and hopefully it won't be too long before you can walk between HMS Belfast and Surrey Quays, or go for a talk with a big group of blokes.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Scott. Take care.
No, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Cheers, Scott.
Yeah,
Bye,
goodbye,
Scott.
Scott.
Bye.
Okay, we're going to take a break there now and hear how you can be someone else's eyes.
Hi, Bethany Warren here. Millwall Lionesses have partnered with international smartphone application Be My Eyes. Be My Eyes is an application that truly benefits the poor of sight and the blind, but is supported by those of us that can see.
You might wonder how blind people deal with everyday challenges. Well, normally the answer is simple. We're not that different from you. We play music. We go to school. We go to work. You get the picture. But sometimes the simplest things can be difficult, and we need a pair of eyes.
Connect to first available number.
That's where you come in.
Establishing video connection.
Through your smartphone, Be My Eyes connects the blind with sighted people through a live video connection. Simply choose if you need help or want to help by the click of a button.
That's a nice picture of you and your family, Caroline. Is it for a present? Yes, it's a photo from my parents.
You can help just by installing the Be My Eyes app.
Print image.
And we'll notify you when someone needs your help. And if you're in the middle of something, don't worry. Someone else will step in. So, would you care to be my eyes?
Be My Eyes is displayed on the Lionesses shorts this season. Download the app onto your smartphone now and help those that need your eyes straight away.
I'm James Kelly, and I'm back with the No One Likes Us talking team of Patricia Maslin, Henry Morgan and Stan Godwin. It was the 21st of October 2019, just over a year ago now, since Gary Rowett took charge of the Lions after Neil Harris departed on his own accord. Let's hear what Henry Morgan thought about last Sunday about Gary Rowett's views being aired on social media.
There was quite a lot of talk last night on social media. Some people saying Rowett out. Not really sure what sort of planet that they're on, to be honest, because with the injuries we've got up front, it's difficult to know what else we can do. We were unlucky in the week against Norwich yesterday. Not a great game. Jed Wallace looking tired. Not a lot being created. Sean Hutchinson, it's a header that, we go back to Bristol Rovers all those years ago. He did manage to slot in, didn't he, with his head.
Well, it was nice to hear Junior Henry there agreeing with his dad. Well, the discussions on social media continue, and when you look at Gary Monk's departure after 14 months, what is it that people actually want?
A vast majority of Millwall fans that just like to have a good old moan, which is obviously their prerogative. But I think that in the cold light of day, if you look at the facts about the financial position that we're in, I know that there's been some data released about the players. I'm not sure if actually how true some of that is, but you look at. I talked about this previously about our wage bill and how it measures up against other teams in the division. Look at our attendances as well and how they measure up. There are some big teams in the championships. Our revenue flow. We're lucky to have John Berylson. He's not a flashy cash spender, but he's someone that keeps the club afloat. In my opinion, we've been punching above our weight for years in the championship, just given the current sort of setup of how the leagues are with parachute payments and things like that. And to have a manager of Gary Rowett's calibre, and I know he had a dodgy time both at Stoke and Derby, Birmingham City as well. It's fantastic, and you can see what he's trying to do and how he's trying to get us to play. I mean, if you go back to the game that I think impressed everyone the most, which was Preston. How we controlled that game with Ryan Woods in there, Romeo and Jed Wallace fully fit and rested, just like attacking them down the flanks. You got the big man in the centre with a smaller sort of Tom Bradshaw type player running off him. I mean, that's clearly, I think, what Rowett's aiming to do. Pat made a good point earlier about us not scoring goals. That is a problem. There's no getting away from that. I think people have started to work out Matt Smith. He drew attention to himself by scoring double figures last season. I think people are marking him. We saw that in the Barnsley game a bit more. Is there room for improvement? Of course there is. Are we in a good position? If we keep Troy Parrott and Zohore fit, well, I think we could be looking at a much better and brighter outlook. But you just don't know, because you are sort of trading on unknowns there. But for anyone to suggest that Gary Rowett should be leaving his job, I think is heresy, to be quite honest.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, Henry. Pat, what do you make of it? I know you're very outspoken in your opinions.
Oh, me? I thought it was madness, Sheffield Wednesday getting rid of their manager after 14 months. It's just ridiculous. We all know we've needed a decent striker for the last couple of seasons. I mean, where Neil Harris did a brilliant job with our defence, he never managed to get a gem of a striker in. Now it's Rowett's job to find that person. It doesn't have to be a money person. I mean, we've got people in before, Sheringham, Cascarino, even Morrison. They all come from lower leagues, and that's where we should be looking. That is a thing that will either make or break our season. Whether the loanees fill that gap, we'll have to wait and see. We got one out for 8 weeks. You're looking at Troy Parrott coming back. He's yet to play in front of the more gritty surroundings of a championship side. You don't know how he's going to take that. To me, he's been wet nursed with the Premiership so far. He's not played in front of a Millwall crowd. At the end of the day, the buck stops with the manager, whatever happens. But I do wish Gary well.
It is a bit of a risk bringing Parrott in and laying the weight on his shoulders to get his goals, but from what I saw of Gary Monk's record at Sheffield Wednesday early this week, he's only won 2 of 19 of his home games as a manager, and I think only 7 in the last 33. So I think some would actually say that his sacking was long overdue, to be honest with you. Dan?
Supporters and even owners have unrealistic expectations. Sometimes I listen to these people on the radios and the phone-ins, and frankly, some of them are in orbit around reality. For example, as Henry mentioned, Birmingham. Gary Rowett was at Birmingham, got rid of by the mob that come in and took over because he wasn't sexy enough. Right, since he's gone, Birmingham have gone consistently downhill. They've gone through, I don't know how many managers, and they're no further forward now than what they was when they started. But they was after the big glitzy names and all that sort of thing. And Gary Rowett's coming. At the end of the day, the job of the manager is to play the best team possible. Not necessarily the best players, but the best team. And since I look at some of his signings he's brought in, and we've got players in there that Harris wouldn't have got them because they would not fit his style of football. Neil Harris was and is a disciple of Route 1. And in this league, you're going to get caught out. And I think that Cardiff this season will be caught out by that. But all we've got to do is just keep our nerve. I don't see anything wrong. We've had 2 defeats out of 9 games. Yeah. And all of a sudden it's panic stations. It's beyond me. I mean, what's it now, November? We're going to have the winter coming up in January. Presumably, things will be done then. And Henry made the point about John Berylson, I mean, frankly, if we didn't have John Berylson, the club would, I don't know where we'd be. But, there is a stereotype of foreign owners, and he is the total opposite of the stereotype. So no, I just think all we need to do is just keep cool, keep our ambitions to be realistic, and I don't see this why there's anything to worry about. When people say go out and say, we'll go and sign a striker, they make it sound as if it's easy. Now, according to what we've read, in Troy Parrott's case, we were working on that move since February, and he eventually turned up, in the summer. But it took that long to get him there. But no, I don't think we've got anything to worry about. I just think all we need to do is just keep our nerves, stay cool, and keep our ambitions in being realistic. Today's football fan, if you're not winning 6-0 in every game, the manager should be sacked. And, and if we're not, when the transfer window's open, if we're not signing players every day, well, then they turn around and say, "Oh, well, the club lacks ambition." I mean, sometimes it's mind blowing to listen to it. It really is.
Mm. Yeah, no, I mean, as I said at the beginning of the show, you look at the likes of Derby and how much they've spent and where they are, and you look at our situation, 9th in the league, 2 points off the playoffs. It really isn't as bad as people make it out to be. No, like knowing us, we've had a couple of sticky patches under Rowett. We had that time just before lockdown when we didn't win a game for like four or five games, and then we ended up beating Nottingham Forest 3-0. So I reckon we just got to go through the international break, have a breather, and then come back, and hopefully we can get a result against Cardiff when we get back.
Yeah.
We're going to take a break there now and listen to what Patricia Maslin has to say about the Millwall Community Trust.
Hi, Patricia Maslin here. The Millwall Community Trust needs volunteer help. Whether you're an organisation with bodies able to assist or an individual, the Trust needs you during the current conditions to support the vulnerable and needy. If you can help make a difference or need help, please contact Sean Daly, the Trust's Chief Executive Officer, by phone on 07 958 027060. Once again, that's 07 958 027060. Or contact by email sdaly, I'll spell that, SDALY, at millwallcommunity, all one word, .org.uk. I'll repeat that, sdaly, SDALY, at millwallcommunity, all one word, .org.uk. If you can, or you know someone or any organisation who might be able to help, please let the Community Trust know. Thank you.
I'm James Kelly, and I'm back with the No One Likes Us Talking team of Patricia Maslin, Henry Morgan and Stan Godwin. People continue to lose their lives due to this dreadful virus or as a consequence of suffering with it, as deaths and infections continue to rapidly rise and many more remain hospitalised too. Everyone at No One Likes Us Talking extends their thoughts to the families, friends and those who take care of them.
Next week, we welcome back James, Ted and someone called George to be hosted by Gary. There are so many fans who want to support our club. You can help by joining the Lions Loyalty Club. It costs £40 with benefits. For £25, you or your member of your family can also be a crowdie. For £103.95, I don't know who makes these prices up, you can be a virtual mascot with benefits. And why not sponsor a player's kit for £570 with amazing benefits? All the details and more can be found on the Millwall website. Lastly, don't forget iFollow. This returns with Cole Bates minus a chair on Saturday week v Cardiff. 100% of what you pay for the internet streaming service, home or away, goes back to Millwall Football Club. What a good way to improve their revenue in these challenging times. Good night from me.
Scott Johnson, the founder of the Proper Blokes Club, is looking for guys to come along and join him to break the stigma of men's mental health with walk and talk groups. Lockdown means that Scott is unable to continue the walks until conditions change, but he does offer alternative options. Check out the Proper Blokes Club on Twitter and Facebook for further details. Good night from Henry.
Yeah, player sponsorship for the Lionesses is available this season. Why not give them some added support? And you can find details on their website. Just put Millwall Lionesses into your browser and you will find them easily enough. We have led by example and sponsored their caps in Libby Stubbs. Don't forget there are no games for either the Lionesses or Millwall Romans until further notice. For that's good night from me.
Lastly, let's not forget to keep it safe on the streets, follow the lockdown guidance, social distancing when outside and a face mask where necessary. That's it from me. Thanks to Patricia, Stan and Henry. And until next time, good night.